The stories I'm about to tell are from my own experience and perspective, and intended for reflection and entertainment, not as factual accounts of anyone else's life. Names, details, and identifying features have been changed or blurred to protect privacy, but the lessons are very, very real. Any resemblance to actual people, living or dead, are not factual accounts of anyone else's life, and are mostly their own problem at this point.
Welcome back to Recovering from Everything, a podcast for everyone who has ever had anything happen to them ever. If this is your first episode, you picked such a good one because the first couple years of this podcast were very much geared towards me sort of having venting sessions, but in a very like functional, intentional way where I would go through something in my personal life. I would do a, boatload of research on it. I would journal, I would like talk to different experts, whatever. And then I would hammer out some sort of podcast. So this is going to be a little bit like that. The more recent episodes have been geared towards what is happening with my hair. It's everywhere. Okay. Um, my most recent podcasts have been geared more towards women and just kind of some of the stuff that they're going through, thinking about changing their drinking or making changes to their drinking, you know, different illusions and anyways. So this one we're gonna pop back into Kinga's personal life because this weekend was a trip. So my OG, my original gangsta listeners will remember a lot of this context, but I'm gonna like I'll briefly go through sort of hysterically not accurate historically, some of the episodes in the last 3 years that have been sort of significant to the tea that I'm about to gift you with today. So the original listeners are going to be so excited, and here is the tea for you. Today we'll be talking about a infuriating little game that our brains play called denial. Denial. Because sometimes it's not low self worth, sometimes you're not paranoid, and sometimes it's not your anxious attachment. Sometimes you're right. And we're going to be discussing in detail the difference between denial and your intuition today in the context of my love life. So let me just tease you with this. I saw my ex, who I was with for 5 years. I kept breaking up with him. Remember him? Multiple podcasts on that dumpster fire. I saw him at a festival this past weekend, and you will never guess who he was with. So let's go. Let's rewind a little bit to January of this year. I agreed to couples counseling with a man that I had broken up with 75,000 times. Um, and why? Because I felt sad. I don't know. Maybe I was ovulating. I genuinely don't know what made me open to that. But this is what happened. He begged me. He made these elaborate promises. He cried change louder than like a freaking political campaign slogan. And I decided, okay, let's start with counseling, or not even start because that gives the idea that something is moving forward. I very, very explicitly made it as clear as possible that we were not moving in any direction. We were going to counseling to see if anything could be mended. Spoiler alert. No, just joking. So, What I quickly realized was that angry men don't heal in 50-minute increments. They lash out at you in between appointments, which happened twice. And I am so grateful for the work that I'd done on myself over the years to get me to a point where being around an angry man was officially like a huge turnoff. Like the biggest ick for me is seeing like an adult man be unable to control the words that are coming out of his mouth, his emotions, like trying to steamroll me, gaslight me, insult me. Like, I'm just like, this is not hot. And that was sort of my kind of moment of clarity. Um, Not necessarily that he was all wrong, because I knew that, but that I had reached like an upper echelon of my own personal journey, where I was at officially a point where, and this is something I said to, um, it was my therapist that we used. So she'd been working with me for years. So uh, something I said to my therapist during our last appointment was, there's no one in my life that yells at me or talks to me like this. Like, I don't have exchanges like that with anyone. And I've worked very hard to, me show up in conflict differently, but to also not have people in my life that choose to conflict in that way. And so I'm like, I just felt like such a phony having, working with women and building their own self-worth, and having worked so hard to build my own self-worth, that having this sort of man behind the scenes be like, me, 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 me. Like, I was like, no, I don't think so. um so yeah, that moment of clarity where I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm like officially done. Like, cool. If you're yelling at me, like, take it up with your therapist, your priest, a punching bag. Like, I don't care. And that's not my problem, but don't ever talk to me again. Um, and of course he was like, I don't see how I have anger issues. I'm like, okay, well, again, that's not my problem. So that was back in January. Literally ended it during a counseling appointment. Um, so in March, brings us to part two. In March, I get a DM in my Instagram business page, um, which happens a lot. But the question is, are you still dating this guy? And so I kind of like, I'm honestly so sick of it at this point, because people are I'm posting pictures of my life and of my travels, and people are DMing me like, what happened to your boyfriend? I'm like, bro, like, get out of here. So I'm just like over it at this point. I had gone on a solo trip. I had gone on March break. So the DMs were coming in about like, well, where's your boyfriend? Anyway, I get this DM, are you still dating this guy? I sit on it for a week. Um, and finally I'm like, did you need help with something related to your drinking? And she was like, no, no, no. Sorry, I realize this is your business page. But she says, he's sleeping with my brother's wife. Huh? I'm like, I'm sorry, what in the Jerry Springer hell is this? So, naturally, I get the tea from her. It's a lot, very, very, very messy. And we piece together the timeline, and it's, no, I'm not in the picture. He apparently left our counseling appointment and like tripped and fell and landed inside of this girl. It was like, seems like that's how close that was. But I end up calling him, and I'm like, hey, your like messy love life is spilling into my life. It's spilling into my business Instagram. Clean up your stuff and like put a lid on it. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. This is crazy. I'm the one that's upset that these rumors are being started about me. Just like, and I'm like rolling my eyes, like, this is ridiculous. But naturally he denies, denies, denies. And I remember getting a little bit freaked out at the realization that, like, this is the best liar I've ever met in my life. And I had no idea until that day. So let's take it back a few years. Because it's a little bit of deja vu for me. Um, this podcast's first episode is called Betrayal by Women. And one of the key stories in that, this is literally the reason I recorded my first podcast, was because there was this girl who was calling him. She eventually ended up messaging me play by plays, some really gross stuff about their time together. Um, Listen, I don't feel great. I feel like humiliated a little bit sharing this, but this podcast was built on authenticity, so I'm not about to sugarcoat things for you right now. But she just blew up my DMs and was upset that we were together. I guess there had been some sort of communication, some sort of meeting up. Yeah, I just in this moment remembered that I had found a bra in his house, like tucked away. And obviously was very freaked out. Uh, anyway, he denied everything, denied everything, everything. And me, just desperate to keep this like fantasy intact, just desperate to keep this like commitment that I had made to this man intact. I believed it. I believed everything. Everything, all of it. I believed everything. And so that is the thing about denial, is that it's not that you don't know. You know. It's that you know and you're too exhausted or scared to let it ruin anything. So you make yourself the crazy one. You're the crazy one. You're reading into things. Uh this bra that you found at his house, he had absolutely no part of it getting into the home. Because somehow that feels safer and better than admitting that this is just a liar with a stupid haircut that he insists on keeping, even though it makes him look like a Lego. It's just easier for me to be like, I will take on this burden and I will stuff it so far down that it will only come up multiple years later in the middle of recording a podcast. Sure, no problem. Your haircut's stupid. Okay, so fast forward to this weekend, this Sunday. I was at a festival with my girlfriends, dancing, laughing, literally having the best day ever. The best day ever. And who do I see? I like look over to my left and I see him with her. Gross. I didn't cry, I didn't crumble. I didn't even get angry. It was more just like, oh, this is like annoying now. This is like a hurdle for my eyeballs to make sure that I like ignore them. But thank you so much to the universe for revealing the truth. Because my brain clearly needed some visual aids. And because I like to be authentic on this podcast, I will say this. They both looked absolutely terrible, in my humble opinion. Even my girlfriends were like, why do they look like that? They look terrible. And actually, one fun petty thing that I will share with you that I did do that day, or rather, I guess that I didn't do, was back in March when I had called him and about the married girl. One of the last things he said to me was, Kinga, I'm so jacked now. You're going to kick yourself so hard next time you see me. Which is problematic for a couple of reasons. One, because I don't care about appearances. Especially muscles, necessarily, especially after dating him so long, who was just like obsessed with outer. Meanwhile, was just like dark and dead on the inside. But it definitely helped me realize how much I appreciate like the quality of the character. And so that's something that I'm still trying to find a balance with in my like single life. So thank you so much for that. But the quality of character is more important to me than the quality of, um, well, number two, your steroids. I'm just going to leave it there. And so while I was very much aware that I was being observed by him, I did my absolute very best to never observe him back, to like turn my back. Like literally all I know is like he was with this girl who looks like shit. He was with her kid and he was wearing like white. Like that's all I observed. So I was just like turning my back and whatever, and I was like very like completely fine with that, honestly, because I was not about to give this man the satisfaction of having me see his stupid fake muscles, and I feel really good about that. But the creepy, unsettling thing was that somehow um, he and this girl always ended up like no matter where me and my girlfriends were on the festival grounds, they would always end up anywhere from like 3 feet to 30 feet near us, which is unusually coincidental. Anyway, the point of this tea, while it's delicious and disgusting, and I'm really just leaning into my petty ass self because, listen, the majority of my listeners are women, and this is how girlfriends talk to each other. And the voice notes that I sent some of my girlfriends after that who weren't there, the conversations that me and my girlfriends had on that day were just it's the reason I love having girlfriends. It is supportive and petty and cheerleading, right? They were like, you look so hot today. Like it just was delicious. Anyways, so that aside, there is certainly like a learning thing for me having come out of it, which is like I introduced this episode, which is like, intuition versus denial, where I gaslight myself into thinking like it's my anxious attachment, I'm just being paranoid, whatever falls under the denial umbrella. Um, and also that like denial and intuition aren't just about men. Like I knew very early on, even like with this girl, that like that is a shady, shady person. And I still allowed her to be in my orbit for a while before I eventually like had to block her. Um Thinking, and you'll remember the betrayal by women episode, thinking that like like she wouldn't do this to me. Like this is, even though she had. So it's not just denial versus intuition isn't necessarily just about like your romantic relationships. It shows up, these ideas can show up everywhere. So like with drinking, for example, your intuition's like, this isn't working, I feel like shit. Your denial's like, everyone drinks, I'll cut back next week, like it's not that bad. And so there's like this like constant struggle, but you're still waking up at 3 a.m. and you're paranoid and you're wondering like, what's wrong with me. Um, the intuition is trying to drag you to the light, but then the denial acts like an anchor. With friendships, intuition says, like, I feel drained every time I see this person. I'm not sure she even likes me. Um, and then denial is like, we've been friends forever. I'm just being too sensitive. And so you keep, resurrecting this like zombie friendship because it's sometimes easier than just like burying them and letting them die. And then even with like career stuff, and this was very true for me, my intuition was like, this job is killing me. And denial is like, oh, but the benefits, the stability, your like peak seniority, like people would kill for this job. And my body was fully rejecting it. Panic attacks, anxiety. I needed medication. I wasn't sleeping. So denial v intuition. Denial tells you to like stay put, stay small. Intuition tells you the truth, but the truth usually means some sort of change that is going to make you uncomfortable temporarily. So the lesson, intuition is a whisper, um, and then it gets like naggy, and then it starts screaming. So intuition is a DM, and then it nags with more DMs, and then it screams at you when you find a pink bra in the guest room hidden in a drawer. And if you still don't listen, it sends you an angry man who refuses to control his emotions. And then it sends you validation that you made the right decision, by proof, of showing them together at a festival. But then the universe shows you that it loves you by making them like really, really bad looking, like just really confusingly unattractive, both of them. Paranoia says, what if I'm wrong? Intuition says, girl, you already know, right? Denial says, shh, let's not ruin the night. Let's not ruin this feeling. We'll think about it another day. Everything's fine. And listen, like, it is confusing, especially if you've got a history, which I did, which you'll remember from previous podcast episodes, of anxiety, of like attachment triggers, of self worth issues. Like, we are the ones that people can prey on. Predators who only date single moms for some reason. For example, hypothetically, allegedly, it feels impossible in the moment to know if you're paranoid or perceptive. But here's the thing, your intuition will not lie to you. Like that first thought, it might be right. Um, it made you uncomfortable. It made you aware of new information. And denial lies to you. Denial is the thing that steps in and is like, well, you know, it's denial's like, no, confusion is safer. Staying here is safer. Okay, what? So every time that in the past that I chose denial, I deluded myself. I lowered my standards. I thought they were low enough, but no, apparently they went lower. And I also like patted a man on the head for doing the absolute bare minimum. Like, good. Oh my gosh, good job. But when I chose my intuition, I exploded. I blossomed. I'm thriving. And that was one of the beautiful things of like my girlfriends being there with me, is they're like, oh my gosh, it is like so crazy, like how far you've come, how happy you are, how free you are, like truly how consistently joyful I can be without having this like, you know, anchor with like a stupid haircut dragging me down. So I suppose in conclusion, if you're listening to this, welcome. If this is your first episode, girl, go back and listen to some of the other ones. But welcome. I'm very honest and very real on here, but it's also important to me to reflect a lot and learn, so that I can be helpful in this world. Um, so I suppose if you're wondering if your gut is overreacting, probably not. It's probably not overreacting. The only question is, how long will you keep lying to yourself? What are you going to do about it? Because denial buys you time and intuition buys you freedom. And I think one of the biggest lessons for me is that I'm so grateful that I am like sober and just fairly clear headed so that my intuition can come to me more easily. But also that over the years, I've like cleared things up even more by doing all this like inner work required of me, to heal a lot of my relationship stuff, with males specifically, in addition to with females, so that when the intuition was like persistent enough and consistent enough, I could hear it and I could take action. And of course, I wasn't perfect. It took me years for some stuff, but that's okay because I am where I am now, which is like the most attractive that I've ever been, if I do say so myself. But also like the most disgusted and repulsed by little boys dressed in men's clothing, which, you know, some women are very impressed by, and some men need that. Um, Thanks for listening to another episode of Recovering from Everything, a podcast for everyone who has ever had anything happen to them ever, including running into your ugly ex and his ugly girlfriend at a music festival. I love you. Stay free.